Hello, very beautiful community. Let's talk about Putin's awkward, embarrassing sort of tour de force of the effects of the corrosion of unchecked power on an individual, direct line to the people. 3.5 hours. I wasn't going to watch it, but I reacted to a med and then I didn't sleep and it was morning and Putin was on, and so I just had my phone on in bed and listened to the whole thing, which means we're going to try to make our chat more rapid so that we don't drown in Putin's unlovely corrosion of the personality. Let's begin jumping through. He was asked, how's the special military operation going? And he put up a flag behind him from a military unit that was signed and held up for a while. That looked like a sort of theatrics from a late 1960s small country dictatorship. He said that the situation on the front was cardinally changing and that Russia was returning, that was the slip, territory by the square mile per day. And we're moving rapidly toward our primary goals for the special military operation. But you can't be sure about military matters. All we can say that momentum is with us now. Putin was, as he sometimes is, but isn't most of the time, awkward and shy. He wasn't awkward and shy about his big mission and big principles and big talking points, but he was shy about the details when he was asked to respond to details about accommodation or local problems or rebuilding in Kursk. He was embarrassed by what he had to say, but it was a shallow kind of shyness just to do with the social situation. Behind the scenes, that shyness doesn't go deep. He doesn't give a crap behind the scenes because he believes that ultimately he is addressing himself to history writ large. And in fact, all of these people, including Trump, don't matter. He feels a bit in awe of the US Office of Presidency, sure, and he is a bit differential, actually, for all of his war on the West. Much of his war on the West is still a sort of a compliment to the West in reverse. But despite that, he does feel that all sort of living political figures are kind of an irrelevance because he is addressing himself to history, unlike these sort of fleeting people who come and go. Now, by the way, so psychologically, that's an interesting point. It's common for men, and especially for men in positions of power, to have a quite high social confidence and an ultra high self-confidence deep down, right, beyond their social presentation. So their true confidence is ultra high, but they don't quite translate it into social confidence. So their social confidence is merely high, and there is that gap. And in real life, you often encounter men who are very confident but socially awkward, And so Putin has always had that gap. He was always more formidable than he was charismatic in Russia. I know that's hard to see. He just looks like a sort of cartoon figure if you don't speak the language. Enough. Move on to the next point. What defined a lot of this talk were grievances, citizen grievances that were responded to by Putin more than ever with suck it up, deal with it. There was a scripted complaint from Kursk about rebuilding and accommodation and support. And the centerpiece of his answer, apart from saying, yeah, the support will come, is, what do you want me to do? I can't, I can't get out a magic wand and get the enemy out. They'll be got out when they're got out. Don't ask me. There's nothing I can do. Yeah, we have the military there and they're fighting them out. But they're fighting them out at the rate they're fighting them out of this territory. That's it. What do you want? So suck it up, deal with it. And that's, I think, an illustration of what I've been very clear about observing in Putin for a couple of years now. And that is a sense that everything that's happening that's negative for him are still minor costs, really, trivial costs in the scheme of the historic achievement he is accomplishing. He then said that Russia has become a more powerful country in the last 2 or 3 years because we're becoming a genuinely sovereign country. I mean, that does look to you and I like somebody who's, falling off the 10th floor and saying, flying past floor 7, so far so good. But Putin's sincere about that, as he is crashing his country in a long-distance historical sense into a wall. Then he talked about, in jest, conducting an experiment where the West gathers all of its air defenses around Ukraine's capital and offers Russia a particular target to hit with his favorite toy, Oreshnik. And he said that whatever they put there, and even if we tell them exactly the target that we're aiming at, they won't be able to intercept it. Let's run this experiment, he said. Syria. Syria was interesting. Let's quote him. He said, "We achieved our goal in Syria. We prevented the creation of an Islamic caliphate, and the people who came to power there are not terrorists." So they were terrorists in the first couple of hours of the revolutionary moment, but a couple of hours later, according to Russian propaganda, they weren't terrorists anymore. And he said, "We have already offered the use of our bases to our new partners." So this is a marvelous post-truth communication. He spent quite a few minutes on this. So the 3 things he basically said was, 1, nothing dramatic happened in Syria. 2, if something dramatic did happen, that would be a problem for Syria and Iran, not us. And 3, either way, we've made some new friends. Then, and this is where I really want to come to, and this is what this video is really about, Putin spent quite a bit of time talking about negotiations, and that was the only time he was nervous and stressed during the whole 3.5-hour show. And he said, look, we are happy to approach negotiations without unconditional demands. We're open. But so long as we stick within the Istanbul 2022 model, which is basically a kind of submission for Ukraine. So Putin, in saying that, is leaving no oxygen, no room at all for Trump to get out a deal that can be acceptable to the United States, let alone Ukraine. So that's not surprising, and that's one thing that we observed. But we also observed something else I want to spend a drop of time on, and that's Putin repeating the old message about Zelensky's illegitimacy, as he asserts it or perceives it, but now applying it to the process of negotiations. So he's saying, look at Trump and I, we're the real deal, but this Zelensky guy, he's not legitimate because he should have had an election. He didn't have an election. So I'm not sure how we do this negotiation, given that Zelensky is not legitimate. And that takes us to several places, one of which is the idea that one possible stopping point for the Russians is to want the negotiations, to want the negotiation process without actually wanting to negotiate. Sorry, we got cut off, beautiful community. So Trump will be dealing with several tools in Putin's negotiation scuppering toolbox, and that could be one, whereby Putin says, you and I, Donny, are legitimate and really important, but that guy over there isn't, and here come my faux legalistic sensibilities that make me allergic to the very idea of a deal like this. And Trump will need to say, well, he was legitimate when you attacked, full scale, and elections didn't happen because he kept on attacking. So what do you want, Vlad? And Putin will be stuck, and Trump will need to say, you put many, many troops, and that was, many people said, that was very bad. And I said, it could have been genius if you didn't attack, and you attacked, which I condemned very, very strongly. It would have been a pretty perfect, nearly perfect, very beautiful attack if you did it in 3 days, but you didn't. I don't know if I could have done it in 3 days. I'm strong on the military. Many big generals, some of the biggest, very, very powerful, very strong you've ever seen. So I'm strong on the military. Maybe I could have done it in 2, but it didn't happen, Vlad. And so you have to talk to Zelensky. Why are you on the phone, Vlad? Sorry, Donny, I'm just on the phone to Dima Peskov. I'm trying to get a psychiatrist, seeing if we can medicate your impulsivity, because you're weaving so much. I can't make sense of what you're trying to negotiate with me. And so that'll be the carousel. World affairs, beautiful community in 2025. Lots of love.